There's a dancing pole in the background of my videos now. That's just going to be a thing. Hi, today I want to talk about the difference between tics and stimming, because I've gotten some comments on some of my videos from people that stim and that are questioning whether some of these things might actually be tics. Now, first of all, I can't say that on an individual level. I'm not a doctor, and yeah, I can't do that. But I do think it's an interesting question, like what are tics, what are stims, what is the difference? And even though I had some concept of that, I wasn't really sure either. So I thought that this would be an interesting video where we could all learn together. So that's what this video is going to be. But before we start, if you're new here, hi, my name is Luca and I make videos about what it's like to live with Tourettes and ADHD. So if you are interested in that type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. If you want to support this channel in any way, please leave a like and leave a comment. That really helps me out a lot and makes the algorithm like me a bit more. Share this video with someone you think might find this interesting. That'd be greatly appreciated. Also, merch. I make some designs about neurodiversity, ADHD, Tourette's. It's on Unalike apparel, and you can use code boneitch at checkout for 10% off every order. And if you want to be featured in any of my videos, send me an Instagram message with a picture and your name and whatever you want me to say or to call you, and I'll put that picture at the end of the next video. So yeah, let's get into the video. So let's start with defining what tics are, what stims are, and then we can compare and see what the difference is, all right? Let's start with tics. Tics are involuntary sounds and movements. They're usually sudden and repetitive. Ayo. They can be both complex and simple meaning that they involve one muscle group. So for example, flexing one muscle, sniffing, something like that would be a simple tic, and a complex tic involves more muscle groups. So that would be twirling when you're walking or shouting an entire word or sentence. That's a complex tic, all right? So even though tics are involuntary, people do usually feel some sort of urge to tic. And that urge is called a premonition, which sounds really cool. And this urge usually kind of rises until we actually tic, and that tic can feel like kind of a relief. And the reason that tics can feel kind of good is because this tic probably releases some neurotransmitters in the brain like dopamine, and that makes it kind of feel good. And because we often have this urge to tic, so we can kind of feel it coming, people with Tourette's and other tic disorders are usually able to hold in their tics for a little while until this pressure builds up too much, and then the tic comes out. I made a video about what tics feel like about a year ago, and I'll link that in the card right there. I can never remember which corner to point at, but right there, that corner, I'll link that video. It's all about what tics feel like if you're interested in that. Oh, so who has tics? When you think of tics, people usually think of Tourette's, but there are other tic disorders as well. So it's not only Tourette's. I won't go into the different diagnostic criteria of all the different tic disorders. There are 3, but I made a video about that as well, and I'll link that in the card as well. It's all about the different diagnostic criteria of the different tic disorders. So if you want to learn more about that, check out that video. Tic disorders like Tourette's are comorbid with disorders like ADHD and autism. So that means that there's an overlap of people that have Tourettes, for example, and ADHD, or Tourettes and autism, they're comorbid, so they co-occur quite often. So let's talk about stims. What's stimming? So stimming is short for self-stimulation. So it's a self-stimulating behavior, and it's a self-soothing type of behavior that loads of people do. If you look at a waiting room, people bouncing their leg or tapping their pen or something like that. It's that type of behavior, but it's a type of self-soothing behavior that can have different reasons. It can help regulate emotion, help with communication. It can help people deal with overstimulation or even understimulation. People usually think about autism when they think of stimming, but it's not only people with autism that do stim. People with ADHD can do this as well. Or people with anxiety. So it's a self-soothing type of behavior that can appear in many different ways. I think that the thing that most people will think about when they think of stimming is flapping or bouncing, but it can be pretty much any sound or movement. It can be humming, repeating a word, any type of movement. So why is stimming self-soothing? Why are these movements or sounds self-soothing? Well, that's because of the same reason. There's release of neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin that help regulate emotion in the brain. So that's why stimming feels good for people. So when you compare these two things, you have stimming on the one hand, tics on the other hand. There's a lot of overlap, right? I mean, any sound or movement can be a tic or a stim. They can feel good sometimes, and the diagnoses that people have that stim or tic can kind of overlap. So what's the difference? So the main difference is that stims are voluntary and tics aren't. Now, don't start commenting yet. I understand. Let's nuance the word voluntary a bit, because I understand that stimming is not completely voluntary. It's not that you just decide to stim. And I also know that there is a voluntary type of component to tics as well. I talked about that in other videos. If I can remember, I'll link that right there. So it's not that stimming is completely voluntary and you just decide to stim, and ticking is completely involuntary. But the difference is this urge to tic that is different than the urge to stim. The urge to tic and the eventual tic is completely involuntary and cannot really be suppressed at all. And of course, people can have an urge to stim as well, but it's a different type of urge. I would compare it to trying not to blink versus trying not to scratch a horrible itch. Like, trying not to scratch is also very difficult, and there's definitely an urge, but it is possible to suppress it and to make it go away, whereas eventually you'll have to blink. So that's kind of the difference. And again, this does not mean that ticking is worse or stimming is worse. I'm not talking about that. It's just a difference in how these types of behaviors or things express themselves, right? And the purpose of tics versus stimming is different. Stimming has a purpose. It's self-soothing. It regulates emotions, things like that. And even though tics can also give you a feeling of relief, that is not the purpose of a tic. A tic does not have a purpose. It's just there. It does a thing. It doesn't have a purpose, whereas stimming does serve a purpose. It helps self-regulate, all those things. So if you have a tic disorder and also stim, it can be really difficult to tell the difference between the two for very specific things. When you start to self-analyze something you kind of unconsciously do, that's very confusing, and I get that. And in the end, it doesn't really matter what the difference is for those specific cases if you both stim and tick. It's just there. But if you, for example, know that you stim, but you're also kind of curious that maybe some of these things are tics, and you're kind of worried about that, then maybe go see a doctor, get it checked out. In the end, all these criteria and labels, diagnoses are just meant for doctors and medical professionals to better help you and treat you. But I also know that it really helps to find that label and know exactly what is going on in your brain, especially when you're doing things that you have no control over. So if you have any worries about that, please go to a doctor, have that checked out just for your peace of mind. So yeah, what do you think? Do you stim? Do you tick? How does that feel for you? What do you think the difference is? Did this make sense at all? Please leave a comment. I'd love to have a conversation about this. This is just, one person and a bit of research. So I think we could maybe use this to start a broader conversation about this, spread some awareness, stuff like that. So please leave a comment and leave a like. Press that like. I suck at this. Yeah, anyways, I hope you have a great day wherever you are. I love you all so much. Hope to see you soon. Bye.